The Chiefs running back room is really familiar and can go into the season, but should they add to it? And what's it going to look like today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for making us your first listen here on Locked On Chiefs. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. Maybe the Minnesota Vikings. You might want to check out what's going on there. We're going to talk about them and Dalvin Cook coming up later in the show. But we appreciate you checking us out and subbing, and hit the bell here on YouTube because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day for free on every channel, starting on YouTube and echoing out through the audioscape that you can get on any platform for free. We would invite you to do that in multiple places. We appreciate that. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. I do want to say really quick, there's going to be a lot to talk about when you get into the running backs, but thank you to the everydayers that are out there listening every day. We're going to have another great show tomorrow talking about what our predictions are before training camp starts, before we hit OTAs, for the Chiefs schedule for this season. So be on the lookout for that. And I do want to also give a shout out to somebody on Twitter. I think it was Robert Munoz, gave us a nickname for our everydayers, Ryan.
Oh, lay it on me. I'm ready.
Locos.
Los Locos. I'm with you. All right, everydayers. Locked on Locos.
Chiefs. Locked on Chiefs. God, now I got to find it.
CL. Okay.
No, it's Locos. Locked on Chiefs. I gotta find it now.
Well, thank you, because we need a name for everyone, because we appreciate that you guys do listen. You everydayers keep us flowing, because we do put a lot of effort into the show 5 days a week to give you every angle that we can get our hands on, whether it's guests, whether it's our breakdowns, my film work, Chris's analysis of the cap, everything that goes into it. And honestly, all those factors come into today's topic. What is it? Let me hear it.
Locked on Chiefs official subscribers.
Okay.
Locos.
I like that. Locos, nice to see you. We're going to use that, and I think that's going to stick. And for you, today's topic feeds into all of those things. It is the running back room. Much maligned, and obviously a bit of a lightning bolt. If you guys, I just watched The Natural over the weekend again, that old baseball movie with Robert Redford, right? The giant lightning bolt. Like, that's what they ought to burn into the door on the running back room, right? Because lightning struck last year with Isiah Pacheco, who is now the lead back. But he's not the only guy in the room, and it feels kind of familiar. There's a couple of new faces, but the power trio here, if you're a Rush fan, you know what I'm talking about, is Isiah Pacheco. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there, and Jerick McKinnon is back a lot earlier than I thought he was going to be this year, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and I have a question as to who's going to take the number one snaps in OTAs, because there's a question whether or not Pacheco will actually be able to go. Mm-hmm. His injury, his surgeries, I would think he should be close to being ready to go, and I don't think that there's going to be any question he'll be the lead back once the season starts and once you get into training camp. But he is still recovering, so who's the guy that takes the snaps? Is it Clyde, or is it going to be Jerick?
Yeah, that's going to be the question. Or are they going to go with the youngins? Because there are a couple of younger players, not super young. The guy that we don't talk enough about is Michael Pirine, who's been with the team for a bit on the practice squad and is on the depth chart and should be. We just haven't gotten to the point where we've talked about him a bit. Right now, to my chagrin, and it just pains me to say this, there's not a projected fullback on the 53. So that changes the dynamic at the running back spot, right? So maybe that does become 5 instead of 4, or maybe that becomes the extra tight end or the 7th wide receiver. That's going to be the question, because the rookie that's going to compete is Deneric Prince, who I think could push for that and maybe gives him an excuse to keep a thicker backfield room this year.
And that's possible. I will say, though, Kansas City's gone with 4 tight ends over the past couple of years. So if they're going with an extra tight end, that would be 5. I really can't see that. I almost wonder if it gives them the ability to keep more linemen, because I do think that that's going to be a place that they're going to have a lot of depth that they're going to have to try to figure out.
And there has been a lot of investment there that needs to be sorted through. And maybe time, maybe you're absolutely right. The time is the factor that allows that to get sorted. But that brings us back to the running back room. There's 3 legitimate options. There's a couple of options that might surprise us. Quite frankly, I didn't have Isiah Pacheco pegged as a top 3 back on this at this time last year. It wasn't until after OTAs that we felt like, okay, he could break into the 3. And then later in camp, it was like, okay, he can carry the ball enough. He's got that juice. He and Clyde, can be a tandem. Well, now I think it's still looking like a tandem, but in the reverse in terms of carry share.
You would think, and I'm still curious, and this is the one thing we don't know, and we have a lot to talk about when we get to when we talk about the running backs, but I'm still curious whether or not Clyde's going to be on the opening day roster or not.
And that's a fair point.
I don't know. I'm not saying that he's going to get cut, but it would not shock me if he goes down, or not goes down, but if he ends up getting traded somewhere else, if somebody else goes down.
There certainly could be that factor. And of course, folks, we will deal with it when it comes and give you our instant reaction as we're here again 5 days a week. But my thought right now, if you had to just lay it out, how do you see this in terms of, let's just say, pre-bye? So through the bye week in week 10, who do you think, what's the order in which they get carry shares? I'm not talking about targets, I'm talking about carries on the ground.
I'm curious about that myself, because I'm sure Pacheco is going to be number 1, and we're going to assume that everybody stays healthy.
Yes.
To make this call. I'm going to say Pacheco is 1. I'm not so sure Jerick McKinnon isn't 2. Clyde was specifically healthy going in the Super Bowl last year, and he was a scratch as a healthy running back coming back from injury. So I'm not so sure that he isn't going to have a very hard time getting on the field at times, because Jerick has his niche and Isiah has his.
That could be true. I hope that is not the case, because I am a long game kind of player here. And I think every snap that you save a collision for Jerick McKinnon pre-bye gives you 1 or maybe 2 post-bye. So I am here for conservation of Jerick McKinnon. That you can name that after me. I do think it needs to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're right. It might not be. Whether it's a trade, whether it's just like you said, that he was a healthy scratch and maybe there's something there. How do you fill that in? How do you keep 2 injuries on Pacheco? You can't afford a more serious one. What else could it look like? Could they add to it? It's a very popular rumor right now. Could Dalvin Cook come into this running back room and make a difference? And how would it look right after this?
And I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. If you were looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and the calories, then you need to taste the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You absolutely have to try these bars. If you're like me and if you're looking for a healthier snack choice but don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you: Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're made in 100% real chocolate. Yes, that's real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. They're very healthy for you. They only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't have to wait to get a box. For years, we've been telling you to go to Built.com to order your Built Bars. Now you can get them at Walmart or Sam's Club, or you can get your specialty bars at Built.com. If you're at Walmart, you can go to the pharmacy section and pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate bar, or coconut puff. And at Sam's Club, you can get a 13-bar box of hit flavors, brownie batter puff, and churro puff. You can thank us later.
It's getting hot out there in the Twitter universe. I'm just telling you. And I don't have the tinfoil hat on right now. Matt made me take that off yesterday. Folks, if you missed my conversation with Matt Derrick yesterday, go back and check it out, because I'll explain to you why the Chiefs got the raw end of a partial deal if you're looking at one particular metric. But I got the conspiracy hat on today.
Multiple.
Fair enough.
Multiple bad deals.
But
Sorry.
Twitterverse is hot today because of a whole different thing. And that is, I won't go into all the details, but things are leading to other things that are being semi-confirmed by people. That Dalvin Cook is going to be available and looks like his release is imminent. A lot of Chiefs fans want to know, and honestly, a couple of national talking heads want to know, what would that look like in the Chiefs' backfield? Because this is a player with significant juice when healthy, but hasn't been healthy very often, coming off of a shoulder injury. Adding to him in the room is the big question. Could you put Dalvin Cook on this roster and have it help the Chiefs offense in some way? Not talking about the cap yet. We'll get to that in a minute, but just your gut reaction. How do you feel about the fit of the player?
You're taking away what I wanted to discuss. Yeah,
Well,
I
I
think he
just
could
set
help.
it up.
No, I know. I do think he could help, and if he's on the team, there's no way that Clyde is on the team. I will say that. I do not think that Clyde would be on the team if they bring in Dalvin Cook. But I do think that he could provide help to this roster and give them another running back that can kind of step in and kind of do some of the stuff that Pacheco does and still catch the ball out the backfield as well. So I think that gives them a good complement type back. The question is, and I know you said we'll talk about this later, is the cap number. That's going to be the big key.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you. And I'm sorry if I said trade for Clyde earlier. They could trade Clyde away. Dalvin will be a release, is what we understand at this point. But here's the scenario, and this is why fit-wise, before we get to the dollars, that I wanted to cover this, but go ahead.
I was just going to say there's no way they could trade for him because they can't take the contract, but that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, for sure. And we know all about the Chris Jones extension talks and those kind of things, folks. We'll talk about that in a minute because we know that has to happen before any serious addition can go on this roster at all. But in the meantime, the fit. Here's the scenario that makes me think like it's worth exploring. And that's the same for any major back that can catch out of the backfield that were to become available here in the run-up to opening weekend. And I mean any time from now to camp cuts, whatever. If you close your eyes and squint real hard and Isiah Pacheco has to miss time, maybe significant time, you're talking about either Jerick McKinnon have to take the load or Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be your primary back. And I think they've seen enough of that not only Chiefs Kingdom, but I think the coaching staff is probably not ready to do that. And that's the scenario that I think makes this a possibility and something they should be interested in.
And I would take it a step further and say that the other problem that you could run into is what happens if Jerick McKinnon gets hurt. Dalvin Cook can step in, and I'm not saying he can do what McKinnon does, catching the ball out of the backfield, but he's pretty good catching the ball out of the backfield. He's not on the same level as McKinnon, but he's pretty good at that. So that's a situation where he gives you a backup for both of those guys that I think really plays into giving versatility to that running back room and strengths that they don't really have right now. Clyde has his time and he struggles with vision at times, and he hasn't really shown the ability to catch the ball in the backfield, which was the big reason that I thought Kansas City wanted to draft him in the first place, is that they would use him for that, but they haven't. So if they're not going to do that, then what does he really give you if he's not hitting the holes when he needs to hit them and he doesn't have the vision, which he hasn't to this point in his Chiefs career?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. So what would the addition of Dalvin Cook do for you? It would give you a player that cannot be the bell cow, in my opinion. And that's honestly, I think, part of the reason why, Madison is now looks to be the primary back and that they could possibly part from him in Minnesota is because I don't think he's capable of carrying the load any longer. So he has to be a spell back. And whether that were Isiah Pacheco injury where it is a 50-50 split, or he could maybe take 60. Anything above 60%, I think, is a risk that I don't think anyone should be willing to take. But like you said, he catches the ball well. He still has speed when he needs it. He's just about 28 years old, will be before the beginning of the season. And I think that's playing a factor too. So I think it's a fit that could work outside of personality. But let's talk about what should the contract be worth? What does the cap allow for?
With the Chiefs right now, there's nothing. They have no ability to do anything.
Yeah.
They could. I don't even know that they could give him anything more than much more than a vet minimum deal. Maybe they could do something highly laced with incentives that would be considered not likely to be earned. But that's really the extent of what they could do, unless they get an extension done with Chris Jones, and then they have some flexibility. But I don't think that's a move that you want to do and give him a ton of cap space, because while he can add value to your team, the real value is having a guy that can come in and kind of do both. And the bigger question I have is, you brought in a guy like Ronald Jones last year. You paid him $5 million. He didn't make $5 million. He didn't do $5 million for the stuff for the Chiefs last year. I don't know that Dalvin Cook could do $5 million for the stuff for the Chiefs this year. Is it possible? Yeah, if he can come in and he can stay healthy, sure. But that's the big question, is can he stay healthy? If he doesn't stay healthy, it's not going to matter.
Well, here's what it comes down to me. Obviously, Jerick McKinnon played every game, scored 9 touchdowns, led the league in running back receiving touchdowns, right? 60 receptions on 75 targets. Clyde played only 10 games, which I have to double check. is 8 less than McKinnon, but Clyde only got 22 targets. Yes, he had 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook had 2 touchdowns, but 58 targets for 45 receptions. That's a volume that you feel, I have to feel, that if it is Jarek that we're to miss time, or if you are just saving him for the playoff rush, that is something that volume-wise you can distribute the ball to Dalvin Cook, especially if he isn't having to put his body at risk, lowering that repaired shoulder into the tackle box. Maybe that's something that's enough production that you can get something out of it and make this a 3 or a 4-headed monster.
Yeah, if you can do that, that'd be fantastic for Kansas City. But again, it's a matter of what does he want money-wise. If he's chasing money, it's not going to be in Kansas City.
Right.
I'll just tell you
ring
that.
Or bust, right?
Right. That's the only way a player of his caliber is going to be coming to Kansas City is if they want to give a discount to come to Kansas City, play with Mahomes, and have a chance of getting a ring. Because quite frankly, when it comes to a guy like Dalvin Cook, the only chance he has of getting a ring now is going to a team that is a Super Bowl contender because he's probably only got a couple years left.
Yeah, that's fair. I would like to see what it looks like, but whether he's there or not, how should this running back room evolve? What should it look like in 2023 versus 2022 or even the years before? What can we expect from the running backs this season coming up next? So here's where I want to begin, and that is, and this is not just my normal shtick that I feel the fullback should be part of this league. It's clearly fading away even faster than I thought. And I thought Andy Reid would be the guy that held on the longest. Without that power run, or without the element the fullback brings to that, what does that mean for the Chiefs in terms of their offensive scheme and style? I feel that means they have to go away, especially with the tackle additions, from the power run and go back to the wide zone, inside zone, keep the counter, but things you can do from single back that allows guys to pick a hole and execute.
Yeah, and really the bigger problem that you're going to have with Kansas City right now is they don't have a scenario where they can go 3rd and 1 and get a yard. 9 times out of 10, the best play that they could choose is going to be a pass, and that's not what you're wanting to do on 3rd and 1. And I'm not a guy that wants to run the ball a lot, but I understand that's a issue for this offense is you get in a lot of those 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 situations where a run makes a lot of sense, but you don't have the power to do it. And the fullback isn't necessarily the guy that was going to lead to it to begin with because the offensive line wasn't opening up the holes last year. So even with the fullback, it didn't really matter. So I get the thought of wanting the fullback, but the reality is for Kansas City, you've got to figure out what you could do on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 that isn't going to be just a pass 75% of the time. And you can't use Blake Bell and his QB sneak very often anymore because teams know it's coming. So you're going to have to do something, and you've got to get better at either blocking, run blocking in those types of scenarios, or you're going to have to try to figure out how to get the ball in space to, a guy like, Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore or any of those guys.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. When we look at receiving, Jerick McKinnon was the 4th leading receiver on here with his 545, and he was second only behind Travis Kelce in touchdown catches. So that's fine. Go ahead.
But I guess in my mind, I'm looking at a guy like Kadarius Toney as a guy that could be doing like a jet sweep motion, and even being a little bit further away, maybe getting a pitch as he's running by. I mean, one of those things where you're getting his speed on the edge already and almost past the edge by the time he gets the ball. So there's lots of different things you can do, and Toney is going to give you a lot of ability to do different things on the football field. But again, you got to be able to figure out a way to get that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And it's probably not going to be power at this point.
Right, and that's exactly where I was getting to. It's not the power run because you've changed the tackles out. This is now back to guys that are best in running zone runs. I don't think you're going to replicate the passing season for the running backs as you did last year. So you take that away. So what does that leave you? It leaves you guys that can run between the tackles in a zone scheme and run with some power on their own because they have to defeat a linebacker on their own. And I think that fades back towards Isiah Pacheco and away from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but it also opens the door for Deneric Prince, who I think runs very similarly to Isiah Pacheco. He's a little bit too upright for me, but he runs with power and he's got some pop in a straight line. He's not going to bend the edge and turn the corner like Jamal did. But if you're giving him straight reads from B gap to B gap, he can hit them. And so I feel like that type combined with the tackles means it doesn't necessarily have to be a primetime name that figures it out. If Pacheco is either slow to start the season because of injury or is to be re-injured, maybe it's just stick with the rookie and the experienced Clyde Edwards-Helaire for now and keeping the weight off of McKinnon as well. But does that ring for you, or do you think that they have to come up with something else for the short yardage situations?
I think Andy Reid's got to – I think it's one thing that has plagued Andy Reid for the past couple of years. I would be very surprised if he's not going to have something else up his sleeve this year that he hasn't had in the past. And maybe it's a defensive tackle coming in and playing fullback. Maybe it's bringing in extra offensive linemen and trying to go big and do that more. I don't know what exactly he's going to do, but if there's anything Andy Reid has shown us, it's that generally speaking, when he has a weakness from one year to the next, he usually figures out something to do to fix it. And 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 became a bigger problem last year for Kansas City than it was the year before, and probably the year before that. So it's only becoming a bigger issue because teams caught up to the Blake Bell QB sneak. You're not going to QB sneak with Patrick Mahomes. We know they're not going to do that. So they're limited to what. So they're limited to what they're going to have to do. So he's going to have to come up with something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he's going to have to come up with something that is going to be different than what he's done in the past. And I have faith that Andy's going to do it just because he is innovative and he's brought different things to the NFL.
I agree with you. I think there's some room for Noah Gray to play an H-back role that could be very interesting. But I will say this. The one thing that I'm certain that I don't want to see, and I think it helped the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, but if things go the way they should, this should not happen again where Patrick Mahomes is your second leading rusher behind your number one tailback. That is a problem. He has to take it when it's there. But if you can establish better short yardage, a second, a third guy that can carry the rock and get things done, it needs to be that and not Patrick having to gain those yards.
I agree with you for the most part, but Patrick does some of that on his own. So you'd have to take the ball out of his hands. So the one thing that I'm really curious about is if Andy Reid is going to do different things, and I kind of talked about this in a little bit of a way. It's still a pass, but what if you come in with a scenario of you bring in 2 tight ends into the backfield and you have your running back and you have just 1 wide out or 2 wide outs split wide, and you're sitting there where you have 3 tight ends on the field, 2 in the backfield, 1 on the line, and you have 1 wide receiver. If you got 1 wide receiver that can run a slant, I think that's a first down just about every time.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different things and the different ways they're going to have to attack it. And it's probably not going to be with the run. I just can't see Andy doing runs there anymore.
I just want to see the full backfield again so that there's more options there that Andy and Matt Nagy in particular can get a little creative with it. And I will say, I don't mind the Wildcat. I trust Jarek with the ball. I think there are other players that could do this as well.
Travis?
I wasn't going to go Travis, but okay.
Hey, don't forget, Kadarius Toney used to be a QB too, I think.
That's exactly where I was going.
I remember.
And, when you're talking pitch game, when you're talking those kind of things, it takes practice, but I do think there's other options. I just don't if they have to rely on Patrick to break those long runs, or especially in the short yardage situations where he's got to get something near the goal line, that's not good for longevity for me. So I hope that they can avoid.
No, and I agree with you on that. But again, I go back to what I said before about Patrick. He puts himself in harm's way in those situations on his own, more so than I think Reid is trying to get him to run the ball in those situations. So that's something that in his game he's going to have to adapt and try to figure out. But better play calls in those situations and guys that can get open quickly, or a better situation where you're running the ball or pitching the ball away from Patrick in those scenarios could, lessen the load that Patrick has to carry, so to speak.
Absolutely. We'd like to know what you think. What do you want to see happen? Is it Dalvin Cook? Is it roll with Isiah? Do you want Clyde to be more 50-50? rather than a secondary role? Let us know in the comments on YouTube, in the reviews on Apple, as well as Spotify. We'd appreciate that. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. Check out the other shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, because there's a ton of them for every team you can think of. Thank you to you, everydayers, for being with us. You locos, as we're going with. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for listening today. We'll be back with you tomorrow with our predictions.